Hey,
Hey, Glenn. I guess
what's happening?
Hmm.
What's happening?
Oh. Um. No, Me personally, I was watching the State of the Union. Did you catch that?
Well, I heard it. I didn't see it, but I heard it.
Yeah, I heard it. And what'd you think?
Well, I was surprised somewhat at the fact that he sounded much more mellow than in times past. Um, he wasn't trying to start any arguments or continue arguments. He just basically stuck to telling his story. Uh, what will happen next is more important than what he spoke about. And we don't know yet what he's planning. Is it a declaration of military intervention to follow?
Mm-hmm.
That to me sounds like a possibility. Who is he really trying to please? Is it the people who voted for him? Or is there a segment of society that is basically goading him on? There's something in background that is not clear. So, and that should be clarified by what he does next.
Yeah, well, from what I got, it seemed like part of it was him pleasing, I guess, trying to ensure his next term in office.
Yeah.
And it seems, from what I hear, I mean, there's a community of people who follow him, and from what I've seen is they claim that he communicates through a cryptic way, using a coded way, and the reason why, when he's on the internet, on Twitter, he'll misspell certain words on purpose because he's communicating with these people. And there's on the internet, supposedly that this could be him or it could be somebody in his group. They're communicating with these people, but the information I've heard and seen, a lot of it is true. But then I just heard something recently which made me question. It seemed like it was some, maybe it could have been, like, I think it possibly disinformation, maybe to discredit these people when he doesn't need them anymore or something. Because they were talking about, like, interdimensional beings manipulating events or something like that, and it made me. It kind of it brought some concerns to me when I heard that.
Yeah. Well, somewhat the same as Jennifer mentioned that there were among the people that he introduced as heroes of the United States. One of them, the name was Joshua. Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. There was something else that she mentioned, but it seemed that he was speaking to a group, and the words and names that he was introducing or talking about were not there for the reason that most people would believe that he was explaining, but rather a coded message to somebody else.
Yeah.
Was that coded message to the Moho discontinuity and the time of the Lu, as the wall comes tumbling down, would be the state of Michigan, the northern peninsula of Michigan. So it's kind of not yet clear whose side he's on. And I agree with you that much of what he does that causes the media concern is being done on purpose.
Yeah.
Mispronouncing or misspelling or misidentifying, telling the truth or lying. And, it's not like he's trying to hide his lies. He's trying to highlight his lies.
Exactly.
So it's not a secret. Now you got to remember that this guy was broke, right? And bankers brought him back from jumping off a cliff, I guess, to becoming a billionaire again. And if it wasn't for the banks and whoever was guaranteeing the money, because banks always have to have a guarantee, that's the unanswered question. Who's behind what he's doing, and how much of it is being addressed to them?
Well, I another thing I noticed in the speech, like when he highlighted, he had his heroes that he mentioned, and there was a girl.
Yeah.
Grace Eline, right? And I was, looking in the code, and her, obviously G Race is the name, first name, and the last name. There are two E's, no L, and the N is the M is the penultimate or N in the name. So it could be saying I'm male G Race, I'm male female, and he talked about cancer, working on cancer for children.
Yeah.
So, and she was 10 years old, which is another number I see a lot. So it could be saying he could have been saying that they have to continue working on this plan of for going into outer space and all that stuff. And at the same time, I guess, cleaning out these people, because I saw with the women in the audience, there was a group of women wearing all white.
Yeah.
And
most of them Democrats.
Yeah, most of them Democrats. Some of them hard left Democrats.
Yeah.
And
and they all came to boo him, but they ended up applauding.
Well, that's the thing. There was they came to boo him, and there were still a few who really didn't applaud him, but a lot of them did. So it seems like, is that maybe, because I know white. I was looking up white. White is actually also a symbol of marriage.
Yeah.
And loyalty. Purity. Yeah, purity. So it seems like maybe he was making an appeal to them, like a marriage, kind of like saying, "Hey, I'm extending an olive branch.
Yeah.
Will you, be on my side?" And maybe some of them were on his side, and others were not. I don't know. That's
But you gotta take some things for granted. The Democrats who have basically ruled, with the occasional Republican stepping in, have not, in fact, done for the U.S. what should have been done. They've sold out.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing he's done, is he's saying publicly, enough is enough, time to bring back, make America great again, and all of that. So the media is backing the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Why did he make it a noticeable change of pace for the way he usually talks about them, to basically applauding the fact that there are many more women?
Yeah.
They're not women, they're women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and women is the step towards hermaphrodite. It's the intermediary step. So you have women, and then hermaphrodite. And hermaphrodite is what they need for space travel.
Yeah. And you just, since you brought that up, another person he championed was a lady named Alice Marie Johnson, who was in prison, for selling drugs.
Yeah.
And she was sentenced to 22 years, which 22 is that, I guess, first genetically engineered state. And then, but the bill that he wanted to pass that would, I guess, exonerate people of those type of crimes, was called the First Step Act or something like that. So, I don't know, maybe that's a linkage to what you were just talking about. The first step.
New beginning.
Yeah. So.
Not a permanent state, just an intermediary state. Because number 2 is number 1. So if he's pushing first, that's a secret, and that's a code. That's the ants.
Yeah. So I noticed in one of guys Andy pointed out in the Super Bowl, and I knew the Patriots were going to win because of the whole military thing, but they said there was there was a video I saw during the halftime. They showed a comet coming from the sky and hitting the planet. So that whole rocks falling from the sky thing.
Yeah.
That might be possible.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's certainly one of the things that has been mentioned by the Cell, is that one of the means of destruction that's on the table by God, who wants to get rid of the people who have worked for him in the past, is a rock coming out of the sky.
Yeah. But Trump did mention the moon with the Buzz Aldrin or something like that. That was his name. So, and he has a space force. So I guess he would have the means, right? He has military and space force.
Yeah.
So.
And they've been talking a lot about, the destruction of Mexico by a rock falling from the sky that basically killed the dinosaurs.
And that's why he wants to have a wall to protect this side.
There's something going on, and it's not yet possible to be certain who's playing the game with whom. Yeah. But it's not difficult to discern that a game is being played.
Yeah, definitely.
And what the media talks about is irrelevant. It's just to create confusion.
Yeah.
It's like higher education. The higher you go in education, the more specialized you become and have little knowledge about reality out of your subject. Yeah. I remember, I think I've told you before, that I was a salesman in downtown Montreal, and one of the places that I went to was McGill University, and they have the highest ranking for number of scientists, and I was hearing a guy mumble in a hallway as I was walking down, and I went, and he was a guy who couldn't figure out how to get a Coke out of the Coke machine. And he was one of the brightest scientists in the place. And it was one of those machines where you lift the top, you put your money in, and you slide the bottles that are all hanging over to the slot, and you pull it out. So he couldn't figure it out. And it struck me how very specialized PhDs know a hell of a lot about their topic, but nothing about life in general, Yeah. And that's the feeling I have for the media. They know a hell of a lot about life, and they don't speak about it. So it's always omission rather than commission. They refuse to make it clear that when you find things that were signs of mental maturity going back 50,000 years rather than 4,000 years, somebody had to do it. And if they had that knowledge, then how come that wasn't carried beyond the Ice Age? Well, it was not carried beyond the Ice Age because they wanted to make a lab that would have the necessary bodies to do all of the testing, and they would tell you things like, a surgeon is there to fix you, when in fact the surgeon couldn't care less about you. He only is responding to the computer that wants the details on what happens if you do this, and what happens if you do that, what happens if you do something else, what happens if you do them together. Whether getting to what is best for the patient that he has on the table in front of him has nothing to do with his surgery. He's simply going through the motion of testing how many people will survive his work, not caring how many people die from his work.
Yeah. That's like soldiers. It's like very. They call it. They're only concerned about the mission and the end goal, I guess.
Yeah.
And how they get there, I guess, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And Trump is saying, we got to get out of wars, and he's talking about bringing people back from Afghanistan and Syria.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he's saying we might be going to South America here and solve a problem of who's going to be the president of this former democratic country.
Well, from what I hear, the people that follow him and the information that they circulate, they say that with everything that what Trump's doing, like he gives the deep state what they want, but not really. Like they claim that, like when they wanted to stay in Syria, so
yeah,
he bombed Syria. But what he bombed was, they say that he bombed the deep state's infrastructure.
Yeah.
So he gave them what they want. I mean, he kind of gave them what they want, but he didn't. It was more to harm them or hurt their. And it was similar with similar thing with North Korea.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about peace or whatever. So it seems like he is. I know for sure that he is getting rid of bureaucrats. That's what it looks like to me. But what's going to happen after that is what concerns me. Like,
gotta be military.
Yeah, and it's open. It's known that the military is backing him, and the military is they're passing out information cryptically, but I think at the same time they're passing out some type of psychological. It could be.
Well, the guy that is slated to take over the military in June is the former ranking officer in charge of Fort Drum. Fort Drum is in New York and near Ogdensburg. And when Jennifer was there, she was sending Fort Drum all of the news about, the people on the border and what they were doing and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he left that post to go to Afghanistan, and in June he's going to be taking over the military. And my question to Jennifer was always, why would Fort Drum in upstate New York be the headquarters for Mountain Climbing Division when there are no real mountains. Whose mountains are they training on in upper state New York? Everything in New York is more hilly compared to, say, the Rockies or, the mountains on the West Coast.
She did mention that to me about this that guy that they're gonna put in there. She was, and the strange, like it's like they were receiving, like they're aware of you guys. I think.
Yeah.
It seems like they might be.
And I honestly believe that the major change that they are looking for is a split north-south in the middle of North America at the Mississippi River. So what is east of the Mississippi becomes irrelevant, and what is west of the Mississippi becomes the country when you merge Canada and the U.S. Western Union.
That's what that was all about, Western Union.
Yeah. And don't forget that when you have Western Union, what you have done is control the food distribution of the North. Because more and more of the food that was grown in the southern United States will be grown in Canada as the temperature gets warmer. So if you want to keep the farm the same size as it is, but moving it further north, you have to split the food distribution from the west, north-south, rather than east-west. And don't forget Western Union, the financial people who move money, are a Canadian firm.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, with those speeches yesterday or last night, I know they like to do, number 2 is number 1. So what was the deal with the response by that lady, Sandra Abram, which a name that means women, her last name.
Yeah.
Right? And DNA.
Yeah.
Her first name, right? And when I looked at the speech, it seemed like it was just basically promoting the bureaucracy.
They're trying to make the bureaucracy feel secure. But in reality, they're setting them up for cataclysmic departure. What you see is not what you get. What you hear is not what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. That's a constant I've seen before all this stuff, Glenn. What you see is not what you get.
Yeah.
So
they gotta get rid of millions of people in order to do what they seem to want to do. And the only way you could do that is something linked to nature, volcanoes and hurricanes and tsunamis and inland tsunamis. Don't forget that there's a misunderstanding when people talk about Mother Nature. Nature starts with the word ant. And Mother Nature basically means don't blame us. It's being handled from underground. Now, if you've spent 20, 30, 40,000 years in the Moho discontinuity and built tunnels that you can redirect volcano activity, you're going to control weather. And you can play it almost like an organ. When you press one key, a volcano goes on. When you press another key, the volcano shuts down. But all of that has to have a place of beginning, because weather controlled operations have to be in the Indian Ocean, because it goes east or west out of the Indian Ocean that you get all these storms building up. Now, you got to remember that at the beginning, people were black. Yeah. And they are the first sign of human beings on the planet comes from Africa. But the second group is brown, and they come from India. And Indians are not strangers to the planet when they show up in North America. Indians come from India. The state of Indiana is linked to the country called India. People they call indigenous is India. Indigenous. Now, the second part of the word indigenous is the word in French for knee. And the knee is genou. Indigenous. So the knee is basically the part of the leg that if you're rising up, you start with the sole, then you have the foot, and then you have the leg, and then you have the knee, and then you have hip, hip, hooray! So this is a number 1 to number 5, sole, foot, leg, knee, hip. Soul is basically another word for the electromagnetic part of us. It's the ghost image.
Ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
Ghost.
That part that never dies. That part of us that just adopts having DNA added so that we become visible, but only for a period of time. Most of the time, 80 years or less. But then you go back to becoming invisible again. So we are basically at a time following World War II, 45, and that brings us to about 80 years since World War II, which could in fact be the code that says, okay, you've lived long enough, you've worked for the controllers through a bureaucracy. Now, forget it. You're no longer useful. Move on.
Yeah.
So it's all of these codes that were built into the English language that describe the secret that we see in ants, rats, bats, cats, lions. But what happens to a lion? One of them attacked a guy who was running recently, and he choked it to death.
The lion choked the guy, or the guy choked the lion?
The guy choked the lion.
What?
That's the first time I've ever heard about somebody being attacked by, I forget exactly what division of lion, whether panther or cougar or something, but the guy basically just grabbed it by the neck and choked it. It's on the news today or yesterday.
How is that possible? I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Great.
How is that possible? How do you grab an animal that weighs more than you do, and choke it to death without getting destroyed in the process?
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, look it up. You'll find it there today or yesterday.
He chokes the lion to death and then drives himself to the hospital after.
Yeah.
This is in Colorado.
Yeah.
My brother lives there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he decided to. He lives with high school friends. They rent out rooms in the house.
Now, what would the word choke basically stand for in another version of the use of the word? Deprive of air?
Yeah.
What is the thing that deprives you of air? Well, if you're in water, you're deprived of air. Although water is made up of oxygen, you don't get to breathe much. You're underwater.
Yeah.
The other thing is smoke.
Yeah. Yeah, well, smoke is, smoke is, what's in smoke is carbon dioxide, but we put out, our body puts out carbon dioxide.
Yeah, and monoxide kills you.
Yeah, That's what it is. Yeah, I always confuse those two, monoxide and dioxide. Yeah. So.
Anyways, it's all interesting stuff, and it's more real than just an exercise. So we got to keep an eye out for all these hints.
Yeah, definitely. I'm now that I've been paying attention more, and I see this stuff, and it's, I don't know. This period in time is it's kind of scary in a sense, but at the same time I'm like, I feel like it's a good thing that the bureaucrats are being cleaned out, but like a double-edged sword, I guess. But,
yeah.
So anyway,
it's
I guess
the same thing as when you're dealing with mothers and children, and people always react when children are involved, but they are not taking into consideration that if the mother was genetically engineered, that the children are genetically engineered, and they're only going to be the bureaucrats of the future.
Yeah.
You know. So if creation is allowing it to occur, it's not because creation hates kids. It's that creation cannot stand people who were genetically engineered into the personality that they now possess, which doesn't give a shit about anybody else but themselves.
Yeah. That's true. But, you know, I was watching in your country, in Canada, they say something about Trudeau. He's like behind. The headline that I saw is saying Trudeau gives terrorists amnesty or something like that, or he lets terrorists.
Think of the word Trudeau in French. Waterhole. Okay? Waterhole is a toilet. Flushing, New York begins with a toilet.
Mm.
Lake Superior is the box that contains the water that flushes the toilet down below. So, and he's Trudeau number 2.
Mm.
His dad was first.
Yeah. They just caught him, you know. He violated like an ethics act or something on the news up there. I saw it. They actually caught him, and he's basically apologized. But I don't know if.
Well, that was about accepting a holiday or something.
Yeah, from like it was the Sunni, like a Sunni Muslim leader who was like a billionaire or something.
Yeah.
But he took a flight personal, and they say that even in the U.S. you're not allowed to take like personal. So how they hide it over here is they act like it's a official business. But
well, his excuse is that this guy used to come to their place when his father was prime minister, and it became a family friend. Yeah, well, a family friend has got trillions of dollars. So accepting gifts. Anyways, I gotta go to bed now, Gerd.
Okay, Glenn. All right. Yeah. I'll
We'll
talk to you.
Talk to you again.
All right. Good night.
Bye for now.
Bye.